Hi there, this is GrenularG and welcome back to my channel. Over the next few videos I'm going to go over all of the creative sound design and sampling and kind of effects making techniques I use to turn the original soundtrack and in-game sound effects from Age of Empires 1 into a 90s style drum and bass track. So I tried to put myself in a little bit of a creative box with this one, and I only used the original OST and in-game sound effects from Age of Empires 1 for all of the source material I did in this track, and that includes the drums and the synths and the effects and the bass. Everything came from those two sources. And I did this for about 95% of the track, and then I did eventually add an amen break and just a few diva chops in the end. So I cheated a little bit, but I stayed in my creative box for the majority of making this tune. I also banned just dragging samples into Serum and then turning that into kind of wavetables, because I feel that's cheating a little bit, and I really wanted to focus on sampling here as the main tool for manipulating and changing all these original sounds and turning them into this drum and bass track. Okay, so we're in Logic now, and I've just got the quick sample open with a blank patch, and the first thing I need to do is find some source material. Now there were some of these samples which were quite paddy already, such as this Temple one and this Wonder one, and also this Priest training noise. And so these would always be a good place to start for creating pads. And if I drag this into Logic, probably the most common old school jungle technique would be to use a forwards backwards loop. So loop alternate in this classic mode. And you want to try and make the loop as discrete as possible. So using these fades, but also nudging around the start and end times is the best way you can do this. But there's another really cool thing that I've figured out in Logic, and this is a bit more of a granular way of doing this. And so what we've got to do is set up some stuff in this modulation area. And the first thing I'm actually going to do is come to this mod matrix. And I'm going to start to put these onto mod wheel. And what we're going to do is we're going to send the sample start, the loop start, and the loop end all max to the mod wheel. And that is going to mean if I put this just as it is, and I set a small little area here, What I can do is use my mod wheel to sort of scan through this sample and trigger it at different points while this loop is happening. So that's the first cool thing that's happening. But actually what we need to do is introduce a little bit more randomness to make this more interesting. And so what I need to do is come to these LFOs and put them on loop start and loop end again, just so we can start to move around these points. And I remember doing this before. I think I went for the slowest time possible, which was 0.12 hertz, and then just a really small amount, so maybe 2% would be a good place to start. And you definitely want the key trigger on so they're going to match up. And then as you can see, this loop point is now moving around randomly, which is making it a little bit less kind of repetitive the way this granular looping is happening. And let's also just do some filter modulation as well, just because it helps to have some more things going on as well as this looping to make it sound interesting. So maybe a slowly rising with some sustain as well. Pull that up. There we go. Okay, and this is the basic patch, but as you can probably hear, this sound is actually a little bit boring to do this with. And so I was really scouting through, testing out lots of things in this patch, and I kind of found the things that work best with this technique are actually the more musical things. So there is the main theme from Age of Empires. So one other thing we really need to do to smooth over some of this looping and just some of the weird kind of glitches you're hearing is to put on reverb. And I love Realm, it's my favorite reverb, so quite a high mix and quite a big time to smother the sound in reverb. And then another thing I've been doing a lot recently is sending instruments to this vintage exciter just to kind of add a bit more high frequencies as well. So we're smothering the sound a little bit and kind of dampening it down, but then also exciting some of the high frequencies back up. So it's a really cool way of taking any sort of material and turning it into sustained pad sounds. But the one thing with this you will find is the better source material you have, the better the pads come out. And I was trying this with all the Age of Empires stuff, but then I thought I might just try some kind of record chops and samples of records as well, just to see how they came out. And stuff like this, which is, if I can just play the original one. So just some nice piano chops are perfect for this technique, and then putting this loop point in again. This last one's really nice. If I just come off the attack of that sound. And little chops of records I also found were really cool. Let's maybe play with this filter. So you can hear how cool it sounds when I start to move the mod wheel. You get, it's quite nice having all these little bits of like noise that come in as well. It makes it feel alive. Really cool stuff. So it's pretty simple to set up actually, and you're just sending the sample start, and loop end to the mod wheel, and then just putting a LFO 2% on loop start and loop end. And that's really it. That's the kind of fundamentals of creating these granular pads in Logic. One other technique I tried at this stage, just because I was doing lots of experimenting, trying to create lots of sounds for this project, I used this plugin. I never actually bought this. I'm just using the demo here. And this is a granular plugin. I think it's quite expensive, so I didn't want to buy it. But it's doing something very similar where you can scan through the position of a sample. And here I'm actually just using the classic Wallaloo sample from Age of Empires. You can do a very similar thing where you can scan through the position of the sample, and then it's all about adding this randomization, to the grains and to the length. And then you can play chords, because it's a bit more of like a single tone to what I'm hearing. So if I go back to my one and do something similar. So you can hear they're quite similar, but this Quanta one is definitely a bit more breathy, and they're giving me just slightly different sounds. So I think they're both useful techniques for taking really any sort of information, but definitely nicer kind of piano sounds or chops from records are a great place to do these kind of granular techniques with. Okay, so now I'm in my actual track project, and you can see I've done 4 layers here of these pads, and they're all doing slightly different things. This first one is just a straight up pad, I think. A little bit eerie. And I've got these bird layers. So they were in the original sounds, there was these like forest. So I did some of that granular stuff to samples like that, and just got this kind of background texture of birds in a forest happening. And this is a low pad. And this one's super far back, just acting as a layer. So they're all kind of in there, just like moving around a little bit, and it's just supposed to be like an Atmos pad, this one in this track. It just stays the same the whole time. The pad never changes. So there's not too much happening with chord progressions or anything like that. You just want to have this pad sat in there, and you build everything else on top of it. So the next thing to do, just to make these pads more interesting, is to add some modulation to them. And I've done this to all of these pads, and I really think I just focused on filter cutoff and volume automation, and I'm doing a mix of modulating it in the actual plugin with the LFOs in here, and then I'm also using modulators to do it as well. So I'm actually on this one, I'm modulating the volume by quite a lot from this modulator, and then I'm doing a small amount from this LFO in the sampler. And so I've just got 2 different types of modulation happening to the same parameter, and that's just going to give me a bit more randomness is the reason I'm doing that. So there's nothing too complex there. So all of them, here we go again, I'm doing cutoff and volume to this one, so just to get everything moving around. Okay, wicked. So that's really the end of this first part here of using this cool granular technique to turn really anything into nice pads and textures in Logic. And then in the next one, I'm going to get into some more sampling techniques and just really bringing all of these sounds to life. So I will catch you very soon back in that one. Peace.